Hospital port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanmo TV and welcome to this. This is the long-promised update on the Signal from Space video. Now, I first mentioned this quite a couple of videos ago. I said that there was some new information, an update on what was previously said in the last Signal from Space video, which if you haven't seen, please do go and watch it, because I'm not going to repeat all the information that's in there. I'll give a brief recap, but I'm not going to repeat all the information that was in that video, so please do check that out if you've not seen it, because otherwise this video won't make much sense to you. Also, I'm not going to go and gate crash the Oxford University Department of Physics again. Now, I'll probably do that again for another time for another reason. But anyway, just to give you a brief recap, there was a story circulating that an alien signal had been discovered on a distant planet, an exoplanet orbiting another star. And this was nicknamed BLC-1. That is the first Breakthrough Listen candidate. Breakthrough Listen being a new privately funded SETI project, which organized by Yuri Milner, the Russian oligarch. Now, I actually paid a visit to the UK national headquarters of Breakthrough Listen, which is at Oxford University, luckily just a short distance from where I live. And I tried to speak to somebody, which I couldn't, but nevertheless, I mean, I knew what they'd say to me anyway. They'd say it was, well, this is just all in the papers, mate. It's all in the scientific journals, and anything we've got to say, we'll say there, and aliens aren't real, etc., etc. And this was best summed up by Dr. Becky. Now, as you know, I mentioned Dr. Becky last time. She's done a video here, which I'm going to show. I'm claiming fair use on this. Dr. Becky did a video here, which I'm basically addressing this point. Kind of like talking about Simon Holland, who I'm going to also come back to because he has some new information. So this is Dr. Becky's video here, which I'm claiming fair use on. Here we go. Okay. I won't play all of this. I'll just play some of it.
There was yet another.
Here we go.
It is time to take out the trash, because this month...
This is rude, and Simon actually said, you know, she's being rude here because she is addressing him personally, even though she doesn't mention him. I've never met this lady, actually, even though I live in Oxford. If I bumped into her, I'd just say, oh, hi, just watch your channel. You know, I wouldn't be nasty to her if I did bump into her.
There was yet another fake claim that a big announcement of the discovery of intelligent alien life is imminent from astronomers. And just
again, I covered this in detail in the previous video in the background. This is basically Professor Simon Holland, the person they say professor here. This is basically referring to him. Of course, he's explained why he uses the title professor. He's not actually a professor, but of course, it's too clickbaity for the media to resist, isn't it?
Be clear, there's not. And I got so mad.
Oh, she's mad. Oh, well, maybe sometimes Becky, sometimes people disagree with you. It's going to happen. Now, why don't you just, you know, you can just explain why we're wrong. And if we're adults and mature, if we're mature adults, we will say, okay, if we're wrong, we're wrong. And Simon, I'm sure, would do that. Remember, you know, he used to be a skepper, remember?
Maybe it's just because this is the tip of the iceberg of so many fake discoveries.
To be fair, right, Becky, I think what may make her angry, and it makes me angry sometimes, is that, I mean, that the newspapers will latch onto something which is not real. And they know it's not real, but they know it'll sell. People will buy the paper, they'll click on the web pages, they'll get the ad revenue, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of bollocks. I mean, a lot of bollocks. As I explained last time, this James Webb Space Telescope just detected a terrifying object in space. All right, that's not true. JWST did not detect anything like that in space. We would know about it if they had. It's not something they can keep secret. So don't worry about that. There was a lot of bollocks, but I mean, what if Becky? I hopefully will not try to equate this with Professor Holland or whatever time. I don't mind calling him Professor Holland, whatever he calls himself, I will. And I do remember Simon Holland. I started covering him a couple of years ago because when he first started YouTubing, he was a skeptic, and he's changed his mind. As I said, like he's done the opposite to Brent Lee. He's gone from being a skeptic to a kind of woo-woo, or sort of on the borderline, rather than the other way around.
Claims that circle the internet, especially when it comes to JWST for some reason, which are all absolute, as the Americans say, trash.
Well, that's true. All right, it's
And this week,
the thing about the object in space heading towards the Earth, that was simply nicked from it's a book I'm reading at the moment, actually, The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. It's the Three-Body Problem sequel. It's all nicked from that, all right? And it's true. You couldn't keep something like that a secret.
I've reached my limit, and I'm going to take it all out on BLC1, Breakthrough Listen Candidate.
Right. These are two separate subjects, I should point out. Two entirely separate subjects.
1. A radio signal detected back in 2019, which was already shown to be radio interference back in 2021. But this month, a documentary filmmaker claims to have spoken to
Simon,
someone at the University of Oxford who has links with the Breakthrough Listen project, who, yes, are hunting for signs of intelligent alien life in radio astronomy data, and he's claimed that announcement from Breakthrough and the University of Oxford about BLC-1 is imminent. I'm an astrophysicist.
Maybe it is.
To Oxford, and I can tell you that me and my colleagues all laughed so hard at this news report. I mean, I did make sure to email my colleague, Dr. Steve Croft, who's the project scientist for the Breakthrough Listen project, and just double check, BLC-1, you definitely concluded that was radio interference, didn't you? And he was like, yes, we did. So in this video, we're going to dive into everything we know about BLC.
There is more. There is more to it, which I'm going to come on to. All right. I had a little conversation with Steve mumbling about this, and indeed, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well, because there has been a lot of development since the last video in this series.
One, and put these fake news rumors to rest completely. We'll start first with its detection back in 2019 and why it was initially thought to be a promising technosignature of intelligent alien life, and then we'll chat about how it was actually ruled out as a real technosignature and was instead radio interference, and then finally also chat about how no recurring signal has ever been detected since. And it's worth stating now that all of this information is also on the Berkeley website, the home of the Breakthrough Listen project, where they link to all of the research papers as well. And if there ever was an official announcement from Breakthrough Listen that they had found evidence of a signal from intelligent alien civilizations out there, then that's where the official announcement would be. Now, websites like this are all written in HTML and JavaScript.
To be honest, that's probably true, as I've explained previously, and indeed my various videos on SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. This is not something you could keep secret. It's not like Roswell, all right? It's not like a crash retrieval of a UFO. There are two. The two are so different. They have completely different flows of information. The scope and the ability and capabilities of the cover-up are a completely different matter. Covering up a UFO crash retrieval is a piece of cake by comparison. You just seal off the area where the decisive physical evidence comes to grief on the Earth's surface. You get rid of it. You then put out a cover story about a balloon or something, and then that's it. Bob's your uncle. A technosignature from the sky is different because the sky is up there for everyone to see. You can't cover up things in space and things in astronomy, because astronomy is the one truly democratic science. That being said, there are other. This is what Simon's going to talk about is not really part of astronomy. It's something that's slightly different, and he will go into that.
Script coding languages. I picked up these languages during my PhD, and I managed to use them to code up my own website. But if you don't know how to code, that can be a really big barrier to creating a website, either for your and sales. So head to Squarespace.
That's just a sponsor.
So thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Million closest stars to Earth for what's known as technosignatures, i.e. evidence of intelligent alien life existing. Now, it's a very similar term to biosignature, which are the kinds of things we're searching for in the atmospheres of planets with the
They found some of those as well. They found one in the atmosphere of Venus and on some of the moons of Saturn and Jupiter.
James Webb Space Telescope. So, for example, a specific molecule that might be present in the atmosphere that
It's a weird looking thing, isn't it, JWST? It looks like some kind of novelty surfboard.
Indicates that life exists on that planet. That's any sign of life, whether intelligent or not, whereas technosignatures focuses on the technology side of things, mostly communications, so perhaps an advanced alien civilization that's sending communications between the ground on their planet up to satellites and beyond. So To keep an eye.
Wouldn't necessarily, they're very difficult to detect because they're not designed to transmit across light years, and so their power is quite low. It's very difficult for us to pick them up.
On a million of the closest stars to us, the Breakthrough Listen project uses radio light telescopes around the world, from the Green Bank Telescope in West Virginia to the Parkes Radio Telescope in New South Wales to the Meerkat Telescope in the Northern Cape of South Africa. And back in the spring of 2019, the Parkes Radio Telescope in
Meerkat, simple as.
Australia was used to keep an eye on Proxima Centauri.
Oh, by the way, there's a connection between the Parkes Radio Observatory and the moon landing business, which I won't go into now.
The closest star to the sun, which back in 2016, Anglada Escudé and collaborators had announced they found an Earth-like planet in the habitable zone orbiting that star. Habitable zone meaning the area around the star where if you did have a planet in orbit there, then it would be receiving just the right amount of energy from the star so that it would be not too hot and not too cold for liquid water to exist on that planet. But because we have to check these things in, all the ways that are available to us. So the Breakthrough Listen project was searching for any radio light signals coming from Proxima Centauri that drifted in frequency because of a Doppler shift. Right. A Doppler shift is
that's what we covered last time. I think we've got the basic gist now, and we covered it last time, that the Doppler shift indicates that there was something orbiting the actual star. It wasn't coming from the star itself. It was on something orbiting the star. Now, the mumbler, I had a little... Now, it's not, funny enough, it's a bit off topic here. I had a bit of a discussion here with the mumbler. Here we go. This video here, comments on John Kozlowski, the new ARROW director, Senate hearing chaired by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Now, Steve and I got into a slight debate because I wanted to. He didn't make a video about this. I thought he would actually. And he didn't. I actually asked him here. I said, we started having a debate about Project Blue Book and ARROW. And then I said here, also, are you going to do a video about BLC1? Because I am. And Steve Mumbling says here, ARROW has been set up specifically to get to the... All right, etc. And then he says, as you now know, as a fact that your BLC1 video is complete and utter rubbish. Why not just take it down? No, I don't. I don't take videos down, Steve, or very rarely. There's several videos I have put up in the past which I know no longer endorse, but I'm not going to take them down. I'm not going to cover up my mistakes. I'm not sure if I'm going to bother doing a video about BLC1. Dr. Becky said all that needs to be said. That's the lady we've just been talking to, or just been listening to. I will get round to doing a video about the fake professor. All right. He's been now. Do bear in mind, this guy was a skepper until literally 18 months ago, Steve, and he changed his opinion. And suddenly, I mean, he's now cast out of the family Bible. He's off the Christmas card list, and I'm not. All right, I am not the. I'm sure that people on the woo side do this too. In fact, look at how they've treated Brentley and Neil Sanders. Now, Neil Sanders might deserve a bit of what's been thrown at him, but Brentley, I don't think, does. But yeah, I mean, he's now, there's never a legitimate reason to leave the cult, is there? So perish ex-believers, yeah. He's feeding his viewers a lot of technically inaccurate science fiction rubbish. And they're thanking him for it because they don't understand enough about it to know it's complete and utter rubbish. Neither does he. He obviously has delusions of grandeur, perhaps needs some medication. What do I do? I carry on. I forget the Blue Book bit, but I say, it's a shame you don't want to do a BLC1 video because I'd love to do a reply to that. I'm not taking down the video I've already made about it, but we'll do an update with some corrections and new info. That I will do indeed. And I said here, do you know Simon Holland used to be a skepper? Until about a year ago, he was debunking cases like the Solway Firth photo. Well, actually, he hasn't completely debunked. To be fair, he didn't completely debunk Solway Firth. He just said it wasn't the moon, like some other skeppers were saying. As I said, he's just jumped on the ET bandwagon for views and Google ad money. It's always the way, isn't it? Always the way, right? If they always try and carry out an ad hominem attack. I had this just now with the bloody, I had this just now, actually, just as an aside, with friggin', where was it? Maybe I can't. I don't know if I can even find it now. But I put a couple of comments on a video about Pentach, and somebody left me rather bitchy response. I think I can't even find it now. Basically, the person said, "Oh, well, don't you know?" He said something like, "Oh, it's just an exercise. It was an exercise," and I said, "No, it wasn't, because it wasn't. It wasn't." Oh, here we are. Right, here we go. Right, let me just find this now. I'll just go to the video actually. We don't need the video here itself. This is just an example of what I'm talking about. Here we go. Here we go. I said, he said it's just he said this person called Shacklemore. Disclaimer, don't give him a hard time, was replying to Bertie's Ghost here, who's talking about basically the Royal Glamorgan Hospital and how it was rocked, etc. And he said, "Lad, it's just a typical UK tier 1 exercise." And I said in reply to Shacklemore, "Nope, that was the cover story. All the published info on Exercise Chameleon was published after. See Gary and Kaz's book." And he says, "Okay, typical UK SFF exercise." And I said here, and he says to me, "Mate," replying to me, "Mate, do you even know what tier 1 forces, what UK tier 1 forces are? Because you're really showing your lack of knowledge here." And I said, I replied to him, this is just, he's like Steve mumbling in this way. "We're not talking about me, we're talking about the Pentach UFO. Interesting how you shift the frame to an ad hominem criticism so quickly. Why not address the reason I disagree with you? Have you studied anything about this incident? You sound like you lack knowledge to me." And there you go. It's just this is by far, this is not the exception. This is the norm, not the exception, that people will just immediately do this. They'll immediately, they'll turn on you on a personal level rather than address the points you're making. So now let's go back to the mumbler. So basically he says he jumped on the ET bandwagon for views and ad money. So Professor Simon Holland is now just doing what he does to make money, as if there's not there's easier ways to make money than that. Sell dodgy double glazing, man. Become a poker pro. But no. I'm going to talk about aliens, and then people will throw money at me. There's only, do you realize there's only about 5 or 6 people in the world who actually have made considerable income from this business? There's Greer, there's David Wilcock, and maybe a couple of others, but it's very, very rare. And Steve Mumbling says to me, I hope you can see this, "There's nothing more to say on BLC-1. Yes, there is. Hogwash," that's his nickname for Simon, "said that he had contacts at Oxford University who told him about BLC-1. Yes, and indeed we're going to talk about that. But it's not what Steve, it's not the contacts that Steve thinks they are, and indeed the ones that Dr. Becky thinks that. Dr. Becky is a real astrophysicist at Oxford University." Excuse me. "She said she and her colleagues fell about laughing at the rubbish put out by Hogwash." Yeah, that's right. She did indeed. New business. Hogwash is either blatantly lying or choosing to believe someone else who is blatantly lying. Either way, Hogwash should be ashamed of himself for putting himself forward as a senior academic to the MSM, and he should take down his ridiculous science fiction rubbish regarding BLC-1 and communicating with ET in real time using quantum entanglement. Oh, so you have heard of it, Steve? Well, how come you're confusing these two issues then? You have zero evidence to show history's repeating with. All right, he now goes on to the other subject now. Okay, just check. If you had any understanding of the subject and you had a fact check Hogwash's BLC-1 rubbish, you couldn't possibly make a video supporting him over Dr. Becky. Right. And then and then he said here, oh yes, he had all right. The Solway Firth, I'm not going to say this now because the Solway Firth incident and the Calvine UFOs are a separate matter. I won't go into that. But anyway, so that's that there is the mumbler. So now we're going to talk about, we're going to go on to the video of Simon Holland. Now I'm claiming fair use on this. of Simon's video. I will be stopping at certain times and adding commentary. I've skipped the first few minutes, but we will probably watch the rest of it. And I do hope I won't get a strike over this, or Simon won't have a go. I mean, I'm a fan of Simon's. We've even just talked in the YouTube's comments, so I hope he understands that I'm not having a go at him. I'm not Andrew Johnson. I actually do quite respect and like this guy, and especially since he has kind of changed his mind. He shifted his position quite considerably over the last year and a half or so.
Claim from me. But that's the type of research that I do for you on this channel. Not just repeating boring
Oh dear, Dr. Becky scripts.
peer-reviewed documents from 2020, but researching emerging technologies that might just change our world. I'm prepared to ask big and brave questions for you, because there's emerging
Thanks, Simon. I know you are.
science out there that's not being discussed in the hallow halls of Oxford and Cambridge.
Yeah, which I tried to break. I tried to gate crash.
The established science community. I really appreciate.
See, that's the established science community. This is something a skeptic would never say. So he is going woo-woo now. He is going woo. There's no doubt about it. This is really it's worth like just looking at some of his early stuff. I wrote some articles about some of his early material. I really did, and it's the change in him is extraordinary. But that's a sign of honesty. That's a sign of honesty, I think.
All your support. Like and subscribe here to discover what the boring science channels.
Do you notice he's got a clanger there? I wonder if it's because of my comment, because I said that the VLC one sounded like the clangers.
Won't discuss. So, viewers, is instant quantum communication real? Well, that post.
Well, funny enough, this also came up in the Cixin Liu trilogy. That's the Remembrance of Earth's Past, which I'm reading at the moment. This is the same book which talked about an object approaching the Earth in the distance, and JWST is looking at it. It's a strange object. It's course correcting. It's heading towards the Earth. That's part of the plot of the story. But it's the same book, and in the book, if you read it, and indeed this is repeated in the rather substandard Netflix TV adaptation. Signals from space are not picked up by astronomers, but by particle physics, because of this quantum tunneling that he's going to talk about. The aliens actually do decide to use quantum tunneling. Therefore, they're first detected by people studying particles, subatomic particles, rather than radio waves from space.
This is a very big question for me. To understand the quantum physics, you would need a very big blackboard with very big equations.
Yeah, I'm going to make an effort to understand some of this, but to be honest, I think you do need specialized training and education to understand all the issues here, which I know Dr. Becky has and I do not. But I'm going to make an effort to try and to tackle this. Indeed, it appears Dr. Becky doesn't actually know about this yet. If she does, she may change her mind.
So failing to have a really big blackboard and failing to understand the really big equations, I reached out to a radio telescope scientist to explain quantum communication for you.
Is this the same scientist he talked about previously, I wonder? Do you remember he said he spoke to a scientist working for the EU's radio telescope project, this network of telescopes from Manchester to Namibia, which is being used to try and track alien signals, and that this guy contacted him privately and said they've already had success and they're about to publish. Do you remember that bit? That was he made the video about 6 months ago, and I think I tackled this in the last Signal from Space video.
What I said to him is, don't bamboozle us with quantum physics equations. Please try and clearly describe what is going on using what I call steam engine visual analogy.
Now, this is actually a very, very acquired skill for an expert, someone who's used to communicating with others in their own language, with all the terminology and jargon, for them to translate, for want of a better word, into language that a non-scientist would understand.
So what I've done is taken the audio that he left on my phone and 100% accurately transcribed it into an AI voice that's just reading exactly what he said.
Oh, fair enough. All right, Steve. Simon. I've got Steve mumbling on the brain now. Simon Holland. I'm tempted to say to you, could you just tell us who he is? but I understand it's not fair to dox. I'd like to know who he is, and I'm sure it'd be possible to work out who he is, and a lot of people probably do this. But I do appreciate you creating this audio, and but you do understand there is a credibility problem if you can't identify him.
If what you're about to hear is true, and I have no evidence to doubt it, we today might have a new tool.
But the burden of evidence is on the other side. The onus, Simon, the onus. The onus. I'm taking a mickey now. Watch my skeptic videos. It's a joke. It's an in-joke if you're familiar with my skeptic videos.
Tool that can detect non-human intelligence. Because if we can build an instantaneous quantum communication device, it's logical to imagine that ET might also.
Now, the quantum communication device I will go into in detail, but it's summed up by this image behind me. I'll just shut myself off so you can see it better. There you go. It's the classical physics is the person climbing the hill with a rock, Sisyphus style, and going down the other side. So that's like the standard, the model of radio waves and things like that. And of course, the tunnel. It's called a tunnel because it's a shortcut. It is literally a wormhole, like the Einstein-Rosen bridge. So that's what I've got behind me for that reason. But I decided to just blank myself out so you could see it properly. But I thought it was a good. I thought that was a very, very good thematic thing for this particular video.
Reap the benefits of instantaneous long distance.
What it means is basically you're familiar, I take it, with. I mean, if you've watched, a lot of people in the alternative woo-woo world are, because you've watched things like What the Bleep Do We Know? Quantum entanglement. There's these two particles, and one spins that way, the other spins that way. They always spin in opposite ways, no matter where they are. Now, they could be right next to each other, or communicating using electromagnetic waves or the strong nuclear force or something like that. But then you take them apart, and they do the same thing. And it turns out that no matter how far apart you put them, they synchronize. And so it's pretty clear that they have some form of communication. One knows what the other is doing. And it doesn't matter how far away they are. They could be you could have one here and one on the most distant galaxy ever observed. And they will still, one seems to know what the other is doing. So obviously they are not using electromagnetic radiation to communicate. Because if they were, it would take billions of years for one particle to know what the other one is doing. And it's obvious, even as a child, I understood this when I first realized this. You could use this system to build the most fantastic communication device. You wouldn't have to stick the Arecibo message up into the sky and wait 50,000 years for the globular cluster to say, "Hello, yes, we heard you." You wouldn't have to do that. You could literally pick up a phone and talk to these people in that globular cluster 25,000 light years away. Or indeed, you could talk to someone in a galaxy 25 billion light years away. You could have a real-time conversation with them. And that is what that's what the subject is here, I think. And we'll let Simon continue. Well, I think it's only fair you should see him. I'll put you on screen share. There you go.
Quantum communication. So to make things really clear why this fascinating engineer wants to remain anonymous is because he claims that these quantum communication listening devices are currently being fitted to radio telescopes to detect if ET are using that technology.
Well, I mean, they're being fitted, but is it some classified or something?
That is still secret.
Well, yeah, it's possible that some radio telescopes you could do something like this and keep it secret from the rest of the world. You could have a successful cover-up. But I can't see it lasting long. But I mean, obviously, if this person is involved, then he's a whistleblower. And Simon wants to keep because he could suffer professionally or even legally if this is revealed. Now, of course, the skeptics will probably make the same criticism of Simon as they'd make of me if I talk about a whistleblower like Jack of the Antarctic. They'll say, well, Ben, maybe you made him up. Maybe he's a figment of your imagination. You're a writer after all. Maybe you made up that story about meeting this guy. And I'm sure people will say the same about Simon. And right now, it can't be proved, can it? I mean, this is, I suppose, fair enough that the that the skeptics and the backslappers do this in the UFO world with Elizondo and people like that, and Grush, when they say, well, I heard it in a skiff from somebody, but I can't tell you who, and I can't tell you all the details. And now they're going to say the same to Simon, and it's understandable.
I will try to explain Professor Nimitz's microwave tunnel effect.
Yes, Gunter Nimitz. Now, Nimitz. This is this guy here. This is Professor Gunter Nimitz, a German physicist. Now, is it a coincidence that it probably is that the 2017 UFO relations refer to a ship called the USS Nimitz? I mean, Nimitz, for all I know, might be a very common German name. I don't know. I have to ask Michael Shrimpton. He's got the gens on the Germans, hasn't he? But anyway, this is by G. I'll show you the paper in a minute. Actually, in fact, I might show it you now. Here you go. It's very short. Let me zoom in a bit. Macroscopic Violation of Special Relativity by Gunter Nimitz and A.A. Stolhofen. Yes. I won't keep the German accent going. And of course, not everyone will. This is in scientific language, and so not everyone will understand it. Feynman, that's Richard Feynman, I suppose. One of the founders of quantum electrodynamics, QED, like the conference, introduced vertical particles in his diagrams. I think I'll have to put I'll have to put a bit of accent on so you know when I'm speaking. As intermediate states of an interaction process, such visual particles are not observable. However, from the theoretical point of view, they represent necessary intermediate states between observable real states. Such vertical particles were introduced for describing the interaction process between an electron and positron. For much more complicated interaction processes as a candidates for virtual photons and effervescent modes in optics. All right. I'm going to have to leave it there, I think, because again, this is all Greek to me, I'm afraid. And so here we go. We'll go through this. But anyway, here's a diagram here which shows. And now there was, funny enough, there was another. I can't find it here. I did cover it in an article. When there was maybe even, it might even have been this one, but there was an experiment done which essentially proved quantum tunneling, because there was a beam of particles was released towards a wall. I think it was a wall of some kind of insulator substance like lead, and some of those beams actually reappeared on the other side of the barrier and did not pass through. They did not pass through. They essentially vanished from one side and then reappeared on the other. And I can't find the details. I've looked through my Hanmo voice and I cannot find the details of it. So, but anyway, I do remember reading about it. I think it was in Australia. They fire proton beams at a lead screen. This lead screen should actually repel nearly all those protons. Only a handful will get through the lead screen by normal means. It turns out that more got through than should have, and it turns out they didn't actually travel through the lead screen physically. They disappeared and then reappeared on the other side. Now, this is actually, this was kind of satirized in the film The Men Who Stare at Ghosts, because if you remember, they have a parody of General Albert Stubblebine. Famous insider woo-woo, because, and this is reproduced in John Ronson's book as well. It was originally described in John Ronson's book. He runs towards the wall of his office and ends up bashing his nose and falling back, because he believes if he can put all his quantum particles through meditation into the right state, he can actually pass through the solid object in the same way as the protons did in that experiment. Indeed, there's even talk about, yogis from India, traveling through walls and things like that. And indeed, David Copperfield claims to have reproduced it with the Great Wall of China. Although, of course, he just uses magic tricks, doesn't he? Yeah. But it's a very funny film. The book is serious, but I probably don't believe that if you run at your wall, you will be able to pass through, no matter how much you sit on a mountaintop contemplating your navel. But it can, with small protons, with small objects like subatomic particles, it can be done. Anyway, this is the you can have a look through this. I think this is air between. I don't know what this means. There's a thing saying tunnel here, but again, there's no point in me reading this. If you can understand this, you can pause and read it. It's very short. It's just 2 pages. It's a short. It's a very, very short article. But this is the Feynman diagram, real virtual real. So as if I do sort of understand this a bit, because it means that you get a particle which then becomes virtual and goes back into a real particle. But anyway, let's see if this secret insider, this whistleblower, and remember Danny Jacobson used a whistleblower, like I said in previous videos. Now she's a skeptic and no one criticizes her, so why shouldn't Simon? So Nimitz, what's he got to say? And this person,
which by the way is not only restricted to microwaves, it can be performed in every single frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum, even light. The tunnel effect is reproducible.
You can see with your own eyes something in this way.
Okay, Gunther started off with his first demonstration of his microwave tunnel effect using a closed waveguide experiment where he put a microwave signal which was modulated with a piece of classical music. It fired at a tunnel section which is basically an area in the waveguide which is filled or is not capable of supporting a microwave signal. To be
I think that's what he's describing. He's describing the same. It may have even been this actual experiment I'm talking about here. Basically, an insulator, a screen.
Transferred through it. After this tunnel section, it came back again to a normal waveguide where the signal was detected and you could hear the same music piece, which was then transferred through this tunnel.
Right, it's not the same experiment because the experiment I was talking about, they just detected protons. In this case, we're detecting a microwave carrier of information. In this case, music. You can actually listen to music which has been tunneled through in a way that it couldn't travel physically through our universe. That is extraordinary if that's true, because that represents an update on the original experiment involving protons.
Which is theoretically otherwise impossible. Well, obviously, when he presented this, a lot of people complained, "Oh, Nimitz, you've cocked up here big time. This is easy to explain."
I don't think scientists talk like that. You've cocked up big time, mate. No.
Parameter 22, which is letting this happen. So next thing, Nimitz said, okay, well, let's do a free field test. And using feed horns, he fired through a perspex set of grids, which are basically a microwave tunnel section, and sending pulses through. You obviously have the pulse generator. You had the time delay to the modulator, which was then letting through or stopping the microwave signal from a free-running klystron. This then had the signal going through its waveguide to its feed horn, and it then came to the length of tunnel area. At the other end, it obviously came back again into a feed horn, into a detector diode, and was presented to the measuring equipment. The measuring equipment was obviously something very simple, which was an oscilloscope. So
that's all you need. I mean, anything that gets through, anything at all. I like the picture of the men in black at the radio telescope. But yeah, anything that gets through, even like one particle, is all you need to prove it.
Basically, what you've got a gate generator, which is opening and closing the gate, letting through the microwave signal, stopping it. You've got the lengths from the modulator to the tunnel area. That is a delay. It's calculated with the speed of light. And
believe it or not, they have instruments that are sensitive enough to detect something traveling at the speed of light over that distance. And then they can tell, therefore, whether something has traveled normally through space at that speed, or faster, or appears to be faster because it is tunneled through the quantum information, whatever causes this quantum information to travel.
And then you have the tunnel section itself. And then after the tunnel section, once again, you've got the feed horn to the detector diode, which is again a delay, which is the speed of light. And obviously you've got the cables which are taking the signal from the pulse generator to the modulator. That's also a delay, and it's measured with the speed of light together with the signal which is coming from the diode detector going to the oscilloscope. That's also a delay at the speed of light. So you calculate everything together, and you've got the time delay between transmission and reception. Well, you can now remove the tunnel section simply by lifting out the tunnel section, and suddenly the received signal comes later. So this means...
Right, so they can tell the difference in how much time it takes, which essentially proves that these things are not they're traveling essentially not faster than light within real-time, real space, but they're bypassing it in the same way the tunnel in the diagram behind me, quantum tunneling is going through the hill rather than up and over it.
Putting the microwave tunnel section in the path of the beam. This means that you are taking away distance that otherwise should have been traveled.
Yeah.
So simply by placing or removing the microwave tunnel area, you can see very, very quickly that the signal is being transferred in 0 time. Well, Nimitz originally, with his original waveguide experiment, unfortunately used the terminology faster than light.
Yeah, that's as I explained, that's not right. But if you go to Wikipedia and we'll have a look. In physics, quantum tunneling, barrier penetration, or simply tunneling, is a quantum mechanical phenomenon in which an object such as an electron or atom passes through a potential energy barrier that, according to classical mechanics, should not be passable due to the object not having sufficient energy to pass or surmount the barrier. Tunneling is a consequence of the wave nature of matter, where the quantum wave function describes the state of a particle other than physical system. You see, so this is like the two-slit experiment thing. The probability of transmission of a wave packet through a barrier decreases exponentially with the barrier's height, the barrier's width, and the tunneling particle's mass. So tunneling is seen most prominently in low-mass particles such as electrons or protons. Tunneling through microscopically narrow barriers. Tunneling is readily detectable with barriers of thickness 1 to 3 nanometers or smaller for electrons, and about 0.1 nanometers or smaller for heavier particles. Just to see the details here. Tunneling plays an essential role in physical phenomena such as nuclear fusion, alpha radioactive decay, and atomic nuclei. Tunneling applications include the tunnel diode, quantum computing. Oh, that's a rabbit hole, that is. And it hasn't yet mentioned in this list astronomy and extraterrestrial communications, but it might. So that's just a little bit of a background there for you. So you can read through this Wikipedia article if you like, and it goes through details. But anyway, let's go back to Simon.
This was obviously wrong, because what we're seeing is
and his secret insider.
seeing a quantum effect from a particle in the whole zoo of quantum physics that looks basically like Newton's cradle. If you look at Newton's cradle as the tunnel section, as you are going into the tunnel section, at the exact
the moment this ball hits this level, because the shock wave and the kinetic force is transmitted through these stationary objects that do not squeeze or bend or bow or have to move. That power, that kinetic motion, the shock wave is transmitted straight through to the other side.
Instance of this signal going in. At the end of the tunnel section is a quantum particle coming out again. It's a bit like the Newton's cradle, where you've got the balls hanging on strings, and you pick up one and you let it drop, and it hits the whole chain of balls. And at the other end, you've got a ball which flies off instantaneously. So basically, what you were talking about is you're talking about communication in 0 time.
I think you get the point. It's literally like it is literally bypassing.
Hey everybody.
Bypassing reality. Oh, Simon's going to add some commentary here.
So this is me in the middle of the edit with some really big fundamental questions about what Gunter Nimitz is actually doing. Quantum tunneling? How does it work? So what I've just shared with you is a genuine recording from my contact who uses quantum tunneling in radio telescopes. And I wonder
if he's anyone knocking on his door saying, Simon, the Men in Black saying, who is this contact of yours? Because they could find out. If they're that desperate, if it's that big a secret, they'll find out. But as I said in previous videos, SETI is not really a big secret. If SETI is successful, it probably will be at some point. It's not like a massive secret. It's not like UFOs.
Edit it or shorten it down or oversimplify it. If you work in radio telecommunication, hopefully you appreciate or are jumping up and down going, no. But that's what I want. I actually want to be open and honest and actually share real science.
So far, he and his contacts have used language which a layman can understand, and that's good.
But as a science communicator, it raises a really big question. Why doesn't all EM frequency tunnel? So a radio, in fact, would...
I just hear a car alarm. It's coming from outside I thought it might be on the video. I thought that might be the Men in Black come to get him. But I can hear a car alarm outside my door. I don't know if he's picking it up on the microphone.
Would be instantaneous, but it doesn't. It propagates, say, through our atmosphere and is transmitted and received at the speed of light. This tunneling effect, clearly demonstrated by the executive toy of the Newton balls, as it enters, it also exits. What Nimitz and my contact explained to you is that it could be instantaneous. So I jumped on the phone to ask some fundamental questions on your behalf. If Nimitz is correct, and there's a fundamental quantum tunneling bit of physics, the phone company would have instantaneous communication. The microwaves would tunnel between the transmitter and receiver.
Well, in terms of distances on Earth, that is between people on Earth, the speed of light, which can actually circumnavigate the Earth in about 1/8 of a second, it's not really an issue. The speed of light is so fast that when communicating with people anywhere on this planet, it's perfectly adequate for real-time communications. I mean, if you are talking to someone as on the other side of the world, so if I was talking to someone in Australia or New Zealand, there would be 1/8 of a second time delay between our communications. But that's such a small level. We don't even notice it. As far as we're concerned, for practical purposes, we're talking at the same time. It's a bit when you get out into space. It's really just when you're communicating out into space. So I don't think phone companies would be very interested in this, Simon. I don't think this is really. It's really not something that they need to be concerned about. But let him carry on here. There we go.
But they don't. They actually travel at the speed of light. And in fact, the signal gets very weak. What the phone company does is produce the microwaves and make an antenna, a transmitter, which is incredibly tuned to the exact frequency they want to transmit. They also point it at the receiver. The receiver is bigger. The signal is weaker when it is received, but it's focused only on the frequencies they think is being transmitted from the other hillside, and they pick it up, and that's how they make a chain of transmitter and receivers, all focused and tuned to each other on two basic physics assumptions that we know work. One, if you put enough power into a microwave signal, it will propagate, even although it will lose energy over distance. And two, you can cleverly make an antenna and a receiver which are tuned to each other. So what is it that Nimitz is claiming to do with quantum tunneling to make that happen instantaneously? So Nimitz must have a device, a part of the system that forces the microwaves to tunnel rather than just propagate. What is it, says I? To make things quantum tunnel, apparently what you do is block its transmission path to make it enter this tunnel. And the receiving dish is similar. So energy goes into the blocked one, it enters the tunnel.
Oh, see, so the actual act of insulating, he's saying the actual action of insulating the signal from its source causes this quantum effect to emerge. Is it like an emergent property of that? That's what it seems to be what he's saying.
And instantly propagates out of the receiver, and then it's just picked up by some way of picking up a signal. And the amazing thing claimed that with quantum tunneling, the distance between the transmitter and the receiver can be infinite, and the signal goes in and exits at the same instant.
You could talk to someone even over the visual horizon of the universe. You could talk to someone no matter how far away they are.
So if you're a communication person, stop jumping up and down, just leave a comment, please, and keep it polite. So what happened next? Well, Nimitz demonstrated this technique to the radio telescope community in this series of lectures.
Well, see, so he did a series of lectures. Right. Is that why they're fitted to radio telescopes then?
And this is where it gets very, very interesting. I personally was at a demonstration.
Interstellar Communications, the Quantum, by Donald E. Tarter. Any relation to Jill Tarter, I wonder?
Where Nimitz and a couple of his PhD students who were doing their doctor thesis on his work were presenting to a group of radio astronomers the tunnel effect live. And if you're doing a PhD by numerous young people on this tunnel effect, it's obviously got hand and foot, as we say in German. This basically means that it's a 100% something that is fundamentally been proven. And people are going on further to do PhD research on what has been discovered. So this then went into the radio astronomy community. And you can obviously imagine this is something absolutely amazing. If you would have set up...
Well, see, how big is this community, though? Because if it's above a certain size, it wouldn't be possible to keep this secret. Simon said at the beginning, well, it's a secret now. Well, how many people would have to know for that secret to be broken? Because as I've explained before, signals from space, electromagnetic signals from space, could never be covered up. There's too many telescopes, too many astronomers.
Up on the Earth, the beginning of a tunnel, and we understand the physics, and we point our transmitter with the tunnel in the direction of an extraterrestrial civilization. And these guys up there also understand the quantum, tunneling. Then it means that the distance between the Earth and our transmitter and their receiver, you can communicate over.
That would be amazing, because if they can do that, then there would be immediate communication. You wouldn't have to wait thousands and thousands of years for them to say hello back, like the Arecibo message. You could literally say, "Hey, how you doing?" and they'll reply, "Yes, I'm fine. Thanks for getting in touch. Are you Avon, or do you want to sell me insurance?" Literally, you could have a conversation like that, no matter how far away they are.
Light years in zero time. This, you can say, you can best understand with the Newton cradle experiment, looking at how a quantum particle goes into the tunnel and how a quantum particle instantaneously comes out. So there is very basically explained for you all how this microwave tunneling, or any kind of tunneling, actually works. If it's in microwave, if it's in X-ray, if it's in lights, it doesn't matter. It is the quantum physics that are communicating over a very, very large distance in zero time. So I hope I could help you on that one, so you understand a little bit more about the microwave tunneling effect.
I think I've got it. I hope you guys have too.
For me and the other scientists who were gathered on this eventful day by this radio astronomy congress held in Europe, it was an extremely...
Was it filmed? I mean, a congress. This wasn't some secret board meeting at Area 51. A lot of people must know about this.
Eventful.
Well, Dr. Becky, surely she would know, wouldn't she? She would certainly have heard about it. I mean, this is odd.
Life-changing experience. We all realized that basically with very, very simple off-the-shelf components that we could demonstrate in the lab basically to anybody.
Okay, stop. Quantum tunneling is a real effect. Here's a Feynman diagram to prove it. So now you might be able to instantly hear and communicate with a very distant non-human intelligence. What do you say? How do you share stuff? The next question is actually far more difficult than the practical physics of...
Say, stop sticking probes into my asshole.
Building a quantum tunneling machine. And that is, how do you talk to them? So let's now talk about the method of communicating with an alien.
Now that's another subject. It's kind of a separate subject.
So say we have set up a communications link between our civilization and another civilization, which is an awful long way away. Even if you can communicate in zero time, that is not going to solve the problems.
No.
The first thing you have to do is you have to generate some kind of picture format so people can understand.
I'm skipping that bit because that's a separate... What he's gone on to now is kind of a separate subject that's not really part of this video, but I will touch on it briefly in a minute in my own way in a moment. Okay.
To take away the pictures and to use things like speech or text, that is an amazing next step. So the first step will be to exchange pictures with each other. I hope this has let you have some basis.
Right now, if you, how many of you seen The Arrival? Now, if you haven't seen this film, why not? I'm sorry, that sounds a bit arrogant, doesn't it? But this is so good, man. This is so brilliant. This is bloody fantastic. If it's, I mean, alien invasion films, they vary an awful lot in terms of technical quality and intellectual creativity. This scores very highly on both. This is basically about an alien invasion. Aliens arrive on the Earth, and they land in these big spaceships. And the people who have to go and speak to them, because they can't keep it covered up, are linguists. Amy Adams, for example, this actress, Amy Adams, is the chief linguist who goes in to try and decode their language. And the whole film is about how do you talk to them? How do you talk to these aliens? How do you find a way of communicating with them? Because it's just so complicated. It's not like in the in the movies where you get like some ex-American footballer playing a Klingon who mutters incoherences about revenge being a dish best served cold and all this sort of thing. Talking to real aliens is very, very different. Do they even talk like we do? Do they have vocal cords, and do they use sound? Do they use mechanical vibrations in the atmosphere, or do they communicate using light? Do they have eyes at all? It's completely unknown territory. And so, yeah, it's a very, very important point there. I'm just going to go back to the video now. But you do watch, honestly, I can't really explain any more than just you have to watch the film Arrival, because it's bloody good. Not to be confused with The Arrival. That's another film about SETI and alien invasion. It's not as good.
Information about the problems that scientists have in understanding extraterrestrial civilizations. And it cannot be that we discover something and we tell people, and then they want to know everything.
But how do you keep it from us? That's not a moral question. It's a practical question. How do you prevent people from learning when you're holding conferences about quantum tunneling and installing these devices, these tunnels, into radio telescopes?
Please, in half a year, we want to know everything. You're going to answer all our questions. And if you can't, well, you're not the right people for the job. We need other people who are more intelligent than you. And at the end of the day, all we have is chaos. So this is one of the main reasons why alien communication, rule number 1, is don't tell anyone. It's obviously an important thing to prepare civilization.
You've got to realize there's implications as well. I mean, it's not only, well, would they? It's would they tell us? It's could they tell us? And I as I said, I don't think you keep something like a secret. But also, the implications are different. The implications in terms of culture, politics, etc., of picking up something in the Andromeda galaxy that's a communication with some kind of ET intelligence is one thing. If they're hovering over the telescope and they've already reached us, pardon me, that's a completely different matter. And I bring this up in my SETI and UFOs talks. If you've not seen them, please do go and watch them. I won't put a link in this description box, but there's a link in the description box to the first video, in the first video in this series, which you can reach via the link in this description box, if that makes sense. So the implications, it's one thing to say, oh, there's aliens, they're millions of light years away, they won't hurt us, so we don't have to worry about them. Sure, they can talk to us, but they can't reach us. To, oh my God, they have reached us already.
For this disclosure. And in this phase we are at the moment. So there is no public hype or demanding information that can make the process speed up. This is something that humanity actually has just to wait for and be patient. And
there'll be leaks. There's bound to be leaks. I said this in the original video about this when Simon first got in touch with an anonymous contact.
See, the major governments of the world, with the exception of the United States, are investing vast amounts of money in very, very large radio telescopes, like the FAST telescope in China, which is multiples of the Arecibo dish. And it's been manufactured to be much more sensitive than Arecibo ever was. And low for square kilometer array, what the European Union is investing in.
That's the thing he was talking about. This guy apparently works in this EU project.
So these are massive telescopes that can do conventional radio astronomy, but they can also be used for other purposes if needed.
On this
It's this tunneling thing. They have these tunnels fitted.
momentous week here on planet Earth with lots of breaking news, I hope you found that interesting. Thank you all for being great viewers.
I did, Simon. I did. I must say, this is funny. Look, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Fake numbers. You're a shill for Big Trig. Pythagoras recanted on his deathbed. This is funny. That's a fact on your theorem. You trust mainstream mathematics? Illuminati symbolism. Further proof the ancient aliens created the triangles. How much does bigger geometry pay you to say that? Yeah, all right, Simon, he's taking the mickey there. But well, basically, that's where we are at this situation. There's been nothing released into the media apart from Simon's video. This person, this secret insider, has not approached any other journalists. Right now, we can't prove that Simon didn't make this person up. Just like you can't prove I didn't make Jack of the Antarctic up. And no one can prove right now that Elizondo and David Grush's witnesses also weren't made up. I don't think they were because of the various circumstantial evidence associated with them. But without proof, I understand why some people are like asking if this is true, and I'm one of them. I mean, I think, you know, I'm not a UFO backslapper. I suppose that makes me a SETI backslapper. Well, so be it. But as I said before, the success of the SETI project would have knock-on effects for ufology for reasons I explain in the main SETI talks that I did, and there are several of them on video, and I do link them in the previous video, which would be, well, we could say, well, you know, if they're out there, why, you know, we're building spaceships, maybe they've built spaceships too, and they could come to us. Theoretically, that's possible. So I think the success of SETI would have a knock-on positive effect on ufology. So so this is why I look forward to, unlike several people like Steve Bassett, I don't dismiss it out of hand as worthless. I think serves a purpose. It's not an alternative to UFOs, though, because a lot of people who believe in SETI don't believe in UFOs. Obviously, I believe in UFOs. I believe aliens are already here. But I think, so in a way, in terms of evidentially, there won't be an effect, but there will be effect culturally, because people will make the connection in their heads inevitably. And so I look forward to any more updates on this. And of course, I will make further videos on this subject if that's the case. My next video is going to be next week, I think, because I'm going to be away at the Basis Project Conference. I will make a video about that. I'm collaborating with the Crafty Nihilist on Sunday, so please do check that out. But what I'm saying basically is I will be quiet for a few days. I'll be doing the Hapanmo show on Thursday, but then after that I will be away. So my next video may not be for a week or so, but do stay tuned for that. It'll probably be a reportage of the Basis Project Conference. So thank you very much, all of you, for watching Hapanmo TV yet again. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.